Today we are doing something different. We are taking one for the team, for the profession, and we're excited on behalf of every patient who's ever heard something about chiropractic and you weren't maybe confident enough to bring it up to your chiropractor. We are debunking 10 myths about chiropractic. And Dr. Tracy, you have a job to do today. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a very special episode of the Healing Hands Chiropractic Podcast. I'm here with one of my favorite chiropractors, Dr. Tracy Rush. Dr. Tracy, how you doing this morning?
It is a beautiful day. I'm doing well.
We got that amazing backdrop again, which I'm excited about. It's almost like we're hanging out outside. I'm in this cave with no windows, and you have that beautiful backdrop. And I'm really excited for what we're going to talk about today. We have had some fun on this podcast, and if you're a listener, you already know when we're getting these episodes started that it's going to be great content. It's going to be fun. It's going to be educational. It's going to be entertaining. And we're going to get to the end of this thing before you know it. So if you will do us a favor, because we are wanting to get this message out, the message of the principle of chiropractic, but also just your health. We care about it. That's why we're talking about it. And so like this video, subscribe to the channel. That way you're getting these episodes automatically. And, leave us a comment. We're going to prompt you several times in the conversation to answer the questions that we're answering and give us some feedback, and we appreciate every bit of it. So, and speaking of, we have a comment of the week. Last week, we talked about traveling safely in the summer, and I love Patty got on, and she said, Dr. Tracy gave me airplane exercises for our long flight to Hawaii. Let's all go to Hawaii, right? And they helped tremendously, she said. Thank you from Patty. Patty Holquist 7330. I'm sure you know who that is, but amazing. Thank you, Patty, for that. Also, thank you for the 30,000 views that we have already on this podcast. So today we are doing something different. We are taking one for the team, for the profession, and we're excited on behalf of every patient who's ever heard something about chiropractic and you weren't maybe confident enough to bring it up to your chiropractor. We are debunking 10 myths about chiropractic. And Dr. Tracy, you have a job to do today, right? You have a big job to do today, but I think we're going to serve a lot of people well, including your patients and patients all over the world by addressing these things. But I've got 10 myths, Dr. Tracy, and I'm going to present them in a slightly different way than maybe they would traditionally be presented, as if I was a patient and I was in your practice, and I'm bringing up something that I heard about chiropractic, and then you get to set me straight. You ready for that?
I hope so. But thank you. 30,000 views. I'm so excited about that. And the comments. I love the comments. So keep them coming and keep sharing. Please keep sharing.
It's fuel. It's absolute fuel to keep this conversation going, knowing there's so many people out there listening and engaging. So, all right, 10 myths debunked by the Dr. Tracy Rush today. Jumping into number one, Dr. Tracy, I heard you can achieve the same results through self-adjustment as you would with professional chiropractic care. Is that true?
I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry. Some of the questions were like, oh, really? People are asking that. So, self-adjusting. You don't necessarily self-adjusting. People will turn and crack their back, and they think, oh, that feels good. But then 10, 15 minutes later, they have to do it again. And all that you're doing is you're overstretching the tendons and the joints, and you're releasing gases. And there are feel-good hormones and feel-good chemicals that get released. And you're like, oh, that felt great. But then you have to do it again. People that grab their neck and twist. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, we had a patient who did that. He was a teenager. No, I think he was younger than a teenager. He was a student, and he would do that all the time. His neck got stuck that way. He had to go to the hospital, and they had to put injections in the muscles in his neck to get them to relax. Then he came to us. And the doctors told him he broke his neck. So in his success story, he's like, "You fixed my broken neck." This was Dr. Chris, because he had gotten stuck from cracking his back, cracking his neck.
Oh.
So no, self-adjusting is not a thing. You may feel good for the moment, but it's not long-term good for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example of things that you can do on social media that get a lot of views and clicks and likes. And unfortunately, you mislead a lot of people. My neck hurts thinking about that, thinking about that guy that you guys had to care for. So, all right, so there you go. Myth debunked. Number one. Let's get to number two. I heard chiropractic care isn't safe. Is it? Are there hidden dangers lurking beneath its surface?
So like any profession, and we talked about this on past podcast,
Hmm.
and how there can be injuries that happen. It's inevitable with any health profession, with anything. There you can overdo it. You can cause damage. Obviously, having a practitioner that's well versed in the technique they're doing, but we're human too, and we do make mistakes. It does happen, but it's not intentional. Things that happen aren't intentional. When you think of like chiropractic, and I'm going to go there, strokes, because people ask, "Oh, I've heard chiropractors can cause people to have a stroke." Well, there are arteries in the neck that can be blocked, and an adjustment can make that plaque move. But it's not the chiropractic that caused the stroke. There's other things happening before that adjustment happened. So, like with anything, there are benefits and risks. The benefits way outweigh the risk of chiropractic.
Yeah, and as a patient of chiropractic, I would agree. That's great. I heard chiropractors. I don't know how to read this question without sounding like a jerk. Having been in the profession, some of these are going to be really hard for me to ask. But I want to embody what I know some patients are thinking, but aren't willing to ask. But they're just so curious. And part of my mission, not to chase a rabbit too far here, but part of my mission too is for people to start seeing their chiropractors as their doctors. And it's a hard turn for a lot of people, but I want to own that, but also want to give those patients that are thinking this, I want their voice to be heard, and I want you to have a chance to speak to them. So I'm going to read it as it's written. I heard chiropractors aren't real doctors. Is it possible they're just masquerading as medical professionals?
So yes, does this get down in my core and irk me? And are you a real doctor? Yes, I'm a real doctor. That my certificate says that, the hours I put into it. So we are doctors of chiropractic. We do learn as much as medical doctors academically. We don't necessarily have the diagnosis, but we still have, in our state in Maryland, you have to have an undergraduate degree and you have to have your chiropractic degree. So that's 8 years of schooling, same amount as you do for a medical doctor. We are not trying to be medical doctors. We are our own profession, and our objective is to free up the interference, to allow the body to communicate, to get rid of those subluxations and allow the body to heal. But we have the same hours, clinical hours. Obviously, we're learning how to adjust. So our clinic's adjusting, not diagnosing and treating in that regard. But we're real doctors.
Great answer. Great answer. Number four, I heard there's a pill I can take that can do the same as chiropractic. Do I really need to get adjusted?
Well, every pill has a side effect. Every prescription has a side effect. Even aspirin. Actually, aspirin is the number one cause of, or Tylenol is the number one cause of liver failure.
Oh,
So, and people don't realize that. But no, a pill is not going to move a bone. A pill is not going to restore function. It's going to mask the symptoms. It may help with inflammation, which in turn can help the adjustment, help the body, but it's not going to cure anything when it comes to the subluxation and chiropractic.
All right, number 5. I heard this one feels like one we've already addressed, but I'm going there. I heard chiropractors are quacks. Is there science to back getting my back cracked?
So I actually looked this one up. I looked up, okay, how many peer review research articles have been published with chiropractic in it? There's over 1 million peer review articles, or an article that has chiropractic as a benefit to people. Over 1 million. So we are not quacks. We do research. We have been around since 1895. And more research, more research. I just recently went back to my alma mater, to Sherman College in South Carolina, and they had something called IRAPS. And that was where doctors presented the research they're doing. And it's amazing. It's just amazing how many chiropractors are out there that are doing case studies of their patients or doing double-blind studies. And so there's research even proving that chiropractic works.
I appreciate that. And, in a lot of cases, because some would argue that there are other techniques and there are other aspects of health that have been studied longer, that have been researched longer. But when you have a profession like chiropractic that is as hungry or hungrier than any other aspect of health to continue to learn and continue to develop and continue to advance, you have to take note, and you have to respect that this is a transparent industry that really does desire to deliver real health to every patient. So, number 6, I heard kids don't need chiropractic care. Are they truly immune to its effects?
That was the case. Then talk to my children. My children have been adjusted since they're 24 hours old. They are completely healthy. They were the ones with the perfect attendance in school. Their bodies are very resilient. And I'm going to just even say I was able to adjust my granddaughter at 6 hours old because I watched her being born and what they did to her neck, how they twisted and pulled her out. And it horrified me because I was there. And then knowing if that neck was twisted and pulled out and she couldn't actually turn her head to the left, she could only turn her head to the right. First hours, minutes of life. That would cause interference at that top vertebra, which would affect her ears. I know I think I'm moving into a different question, but which would affect her ears. And then spitting up, acid reflux. So the cumulative effect of a subluxation from birth is immeasurable. And so with that, chiropractic in children, chiropractic in infants definitely helps keep their bodies healthy. There's no doubt about it.
And I love that. I think there's, having been in the, around the profession as long as I have, I feel like I've heard hundreds of stories of adjustments early on that led to, mama being able to, baby being able to latch and being able to feed, or, even early on, some of the things that were said about a baby that they were going to experience that they didn't experience because of those early on adjustments. So, and of course, I've got a 7, 5, 3, and 1-year-old that would say the same thing, Dr. Tracy. They would argue, chiropractic is everything. It's completely changed their lives, and some of them didn't start until they were 5 and 6 years old, and so they're just now experiencing chiropractic and what it can do for the body. For their tiny little bodies. So grateful for that. Myth debunked. Next, I heard my bones are cracking during adjustments. Is it bones breaking or just illusions?
So if every adjustment caused a bone to break, how would we even have a profession?
Right, but it sounds like it, right? What is that cracking noise, right?
So the cracking noise is, have you ever popped your knuckles? Or, like jammed your knuckles and it popped? So all that it is the gas is in between the joints being released. We have pockets, we have gas in our joints, yes. But there's fluid in between there, and it's that being released. That's what you're hearing, but the bone is not breaking. If that were the case, we wouldn't have a profession. And with that, but there's different techniques, like the technique that we utilize. You don't ever hear that crack. You don't ever hear that noise because we're using an instrument to move the bone into place. So you don't hear that.
Well, that is interesting, and I'm throwing a caveat in here to say, so what you're saying is that cracking sound is not necessarily directly correlating with the success of the adjustment.
Correct, because like we talked about self-adjusting, you don't know what you're moving. You don't know what's being shifted. I mean, you could turn your head and your neck cracks, but are you shifting? So it's just the gas is being released. Doesn't mean the bone has been shifted.
That's it. That is interesting because we live in a world now that when most people, when they think about chiropractic, they see the videos on TikTok and Instagram where the microphone is placed right at the joint that's getting adjusted, so you can hear that loud crack. And it's all, you almost get the idea from social media that the louder the crack, the greater the adjustment. So that throws a little bit of a wrench in. That wasn't one of our 10 myths that we're debunking, but it's interesting. Interesting to see that.
And then you can enhance that sound, right, in your
Right.
studio.
Yeah. 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 Turn that mic all the way up. Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. So, so the bones aren't cracking, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone that's ever thought that the bones aren't cracking, you can relax. That's just, you said that's just gas being released from the joint and not necessarily a direct correlation to the success of the adjustment, is what you're saying. Well,
Correct.
all right, cool. Thank you for that. All right. I heard it's going to hurt. Will the pain of chiropractic adjustments be unbearable?
Depends on the technique. I've been adjusted. I mean, I've been under chiropractic care since I was 21 years old. And there are some techniques that are pretty aggressive, I'll say. And has it hurt during the adjustment? I've had that it's hurt. But then that pain goes away or that discomfort goes away and the body's moving freer and the tissues start releasing the toxins and the inflammation. So not long term, but some techniques are pretty aggressive.
Mm. And you would say as well, because we're not here to shame any other profession in the way that people are recovered or healed. To look at physical therapy. If you've ever been to physical therapy, a lot of times you leave feeling worse than when you got there, and part of that is pain can be a part of the healing process. So don't necessarily equate pain to things getting worse. Sometimes pain is necessary for things to get better, but I'm not going to say I don't appreciate the lesser invasive techniques. I sometimes I walk in and to my chiropractor and say, "Hey, take it easy on me today, doc. I'm sore." And he'll take on because he has a lot of techniques that he'll use to adjust. He'll use some of those lesser invasive techniques. So, all right, I heard chiropractic is just for my back. Does chiropractic care extend beyond back pain?
Really, yes. So I wish I had my spine here. I mean, I have my spine here, but my model of my spine. So you have your brain, your spinal cord, the vertebra that surround it. The signal gets started in the brain, comes down the spinal cord, comes out the nerves. So when an adjustment happens, when that bone gets shifted back into its proper alignment, this body sends the signal back up to the brain and says, hey, this thing happened here. So it's going to affect anything that's at the end of that nerve. I say it's like a water hose. If you put pressure on that water hose, it's going to leak out. If you take that pressure off, it's going to gush out. And so wherever that nerve goes, that organ's going to be affected by chiropractic. So the tissues are going to start healing. The organ's going to start healing. You may not know that. If you have high, I'm going to just say, for example, high blood pressure, and we adjust the upper cervical in the neck, your blood pressure can start changing and getting better. It starts regulating itself because the body is meant to heal. I mean, the power that made the body heals the body. And so when we give it the right tools and information, it can start to heal. So it's not just for pain.
So good. I remember the first time a chiropractor said, "Hey, get over here, get adjusted." I said, "I'm good." He said, "No, you're sniffling. You need an adjustment." And I thought, the chiropractic helps with my allergies. That opened up a whole new world for me of what the power of chiropractic care. So yes, yes, everyone, more than just your back, and thank God for that. So last myth, Dr. Tracy, you ready? Last one. Last one. I heard if I'm not in pain, I shouldn't go. Is it true that chiropractic care is only for the suffering?
So I think we kind of answered that, especially with children, because my grandbaby, 6 hours old, didn't have pain. She wasn't suffering, and she got her first adjustment. And so, no, I have many everyday patients come in, just want to stay healthy, no pain, doing great, active, no pain, but just they want to stay healthy.
That's great. I know a lot of people have trouble justifying chiropractic care when they're not in pain. And for many, you go when you hurt. But, you and I have a mutual friend, Dr. Ray Omid, who said, you don't have to do anything for life. You don't have to brush your teeth for life. You don't have to shower for life. But you better know that when you stop doing things that are life-giving, you're going to experience the opposite reaction. You're going to experience that recovering slower. You're going to experience healing slower. You're going to experience less life. You're going to experience more pain down the road. You're going to experience a lesser quality of life when you stop doing the things that are life-giving. So, think about, you brushed your teeth for 20 years. Well, take a year off and see what happens to your teeth, right? I think a lot of
Yeah,
people don't
exactly.
look at chiropractic that way, whereas, maybe they should. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, 10 myths debunked. But we got to finish this episode the way we always do, with some hot seat questions. And Dr. Tracy, we're going to do this a little differently today. Instead of asking you scenario questions or pop culture questions, I'm going to test your knowledge on some things outside of chiropractic. And in fact, nothing to do with chiropractic. In most cases, nothing to do with health. But I have some true or false questions. So if you're listening to this episode and you want to play along, we'd love to see what you think about some of these questions. So hot seat questions. We got 5 of them. You ready, Dr. Tracy?
I am ready. I did not look up the answers. I
I'm
did
proud.
not look
proud.
them up, so these are 50-50.
All right. Yeah, you got a good chance of getting these right. But question number 1, true or false? The world's largest pizza ever made measured over 450 feet in diameter. True or false?
I said true.
Okay. All right. Look, I had to look these up too, so that I could have a true answer, whether it was true or false. The answer is false. The answer is false. While the largest pizza ever made was in fact 122 feet in diameter, which if you can imagine a 122 feet in diameter pizza, that's insane. 450 feet was a little overshot there. So false for that one. Question number 2, true or false? The loudest recorded sound on Earth was produced by the eruption of the Krakatoa volcano in 1883. True or false?
I put false.
It is true. It's true.
Oh gosh,
It
I'm
says
doing
the eruption of the
horrible.
Krakatoa volcano in 1883 produced sound levels exceeding 180 decibels, which can be heard over 3,000 miles away. So if you live in the U.S., that's like you're in San Diego, but you can hear it in Boston. That's the difference in how far away you could hear that volcano erupting, which is insane. I wonder what that must have done for people that lived near that volcano. Anyways, number 3. So we're over 2. I'm just keeping track here, Dr. Tracy. We're over.
Yay!
Number 3. True or false? The longest recorded flight of a chicken was 13 seconds.
Oh, it's false.
Oh, man.
Oh
It's
my
true. It's
god.
true, Dr.
Oh
Tracy.
gosh.
We are 0 for 3. So, yes, the longest recorded flight of a chicken was 13 seconds. For people that say chickens can't fly, that's a pretty long flight. That must have been a special chicken, because I've seen some chickens try to fly, and they didn't get very far. 13 seconds. There you go. Number 4, true or false, the world record for the most socks put on one foot in 30 seconds is 52. True or false?
True.
0 for 4, Dr.
Wow,
Yeah,
this is horrible.
this is
Like, this
great.
is killing me.
I'm proud of you for not looking these up. It's almost like 0 for 4. It's like that's pretty extraordinary. It says false. The world record for the most socks put on one foot in 30 seconds is actually 28 socks. But have you ever tried to put 2 socks on one foot? I mean, that's a lot of work. 30 seconds is not a lot of time. So, all right, number 5. We're gonna wrap up with this one. True or false? The longest wedding veil ever worn measured over 6 miles in length. True or false?
All right, I did put true.
All right. So, never in the history of the Healing Hands Chiropractic podcast have we gone 0 for 5 with our trivia. But today we're setting our own record. 0 for 5. It says false. It says while long wedding veils have been worn, the longest wedding veil ever recorded measured 22,843 feet, which is interesting because it gives me kilometers as an answer. 6.96 kilometers, which I'm going to guess is around maybe 4.5 miles. So what did we say? 6 miles?
6 miles.
4.5 miles? What are you going to do with a 4.5 mile long wedding veil? What are you going to do with that? You gotta. Are you walking into town with that thing? I don't know. That's a. But now you know. Now you know. They say the more you know. So we've talked about pizza. We've talked about volcanoes. We've talked about wedding veils. The hot seat has now come to a close. Dr. Tracy, I'm proud of you. It's funny. You wouldn't have thought in this episode that the hot seat questions would be the hardest questions to answer. But I'm proud of you. I enjoyed this. Thank you so much for joining me for another conversation. Listen, again, if you're watching this and you're enjoying the Healing Hands Chiropractic podcast, we're going to keep it going. And we're thankful for every listener. Make sure you're liking and subscribing so you're getting this content immediately sent to you. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Tracy. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Blessings. Get outside. Get it in the fresh air.